We're back
We are back.
with the legend,
It's getting deep calling me a legend.
the livestock equipment supply extraordinaire legend.
Yeah, I've been in it for a minute.
So introduce yourself, maybe a little background, what you know, what you don't know, what you're into.
I am Levi Matthews. I am the Northeast Territory representative for WW Livestock Systems. Based out of work from home, basically, and on the road, checking on dealers. Based out of here in Jackson County. Been here my whole life. Background, wasn't raised in ag, honestly, outside of 4-H.
I was gonna say I wouldn't say you wasn't raised in ag, but
I was the son of a steel hauling truck driver
fair, okay.
and a mother who was a grill cook at Callie's Pizza for 28 years. Dad was a dairy herdsman before I was born.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was a herdsman for a dairy in Central Ohio. Dad was born in Lawrence County,
Okay,
then moved to Central Ohio in an adoption within the family.
okay,
He grew up in ag.
Okay.
They didn't farm themselves much. They done a lot of custom. He was one of 4 or 5 sons, and Grandpa taught him all the value of work.
Yep.
And they would bale hay for, they were the wagon boys for a lot of people.
sure.
And then Dad kind of tied in with a guy in high school and done some milking before and after school, and he helped him with some FFA work. And then when Dad got out of the Marine Corps, moved back home. When Dad and Mom got married, shortly after he got out of the Marine Corps, and then they lived on a dairy for 3, 4, 5 years ahead of me being born. And Dad was the herdsman for that dairy for that time.
Sure.
And then I was born 88. Dad was driving truck. We moved to Oak Hill shortly after I was born. I think I was 9 months old. And I never really got back into anything agriculturally until I got into 4-H.
Fair. But you were heavily involved in 4-H.
I was.
So you had a background in ag.
Yes. Honestly, my first time doing anything farm related, as far outside of my 4-H projects, was raking hay for you when we were
Kids.
I mean, I was old enough I could drive myself to the hayfield.
Yeah, but we were still kids.
Yeah, and we would take off on 2 open station tractors and go rake hay for
Hours.
and then
And not think twice.
yeah, and thought we were covering just hundreds of acres. And honestly, we were probably raking 20, 30 acres, but
Exactly. But to us, man, we were getting stuff done.
we were, and for the equipment that we were working on, I mean, it's not like today where, if you go to rake hay this summer, you're going to crawl on a 100-horse tractor with a rake that's going to take a 20-foot swath behind you.
28.
Yeah. You were on a Farmall, am I right?
Yep.
And I was on a 2900B Ford
Yep.
with a 6-foot bar rakes, and mine was the high-tech one because it was PTO driven.
Hydraulic
Hydraulic driven.
Yeah. Yep.
And it was, we thought we were covering acreage, and honestly, for the equipment that we were using, we were covering acreage.
Yeah, we got a lot done.
Um,
And I think not to cut you off here, Levi, but I think more than anything, we were teaching ourselves something at the time that we didn't even know.
yeah,
We were learning.
and it was trial by fire.
Very much so.
Because at that point in time, your dad was still trucking
Yep.
to the point where, and your grandpa was still alive,
Yep.
but your grandpa was in some health. That's when he was having some health problems.
Yep.
And he couldn't be there every day when we were working to help us work through issues. And I'll never forget, we broke a knotter on a baler, and you're like, come back tomorrow. We'll go to Crosses. We'll get the parts. We will tear it apart together. That way we both see it come apart. We'll put it together. And then when we showed up the next day, your grandpa had it laying in pieces and said, you boys need to go to Crosses and get parts. And we're like, I think it took us 4.5 hours to put a knotter back in a baler.
It was a long time.
And that was no teardown. Like, teardown was done, but we had no clue how it all went back together. But
but we
figured it out.
Figured it out, yeah. We baled hay that day.
We baled hay that day, and then we unloaded 180 squares in 15 minutes in a downpour.
In a downpour. I'll never forget that.
We did it.
Yeah.
And I mean, but that was kind of my first introduction into.
I never knew that. Jeez.
And then, graduated high school, became a part of the county livestock committee.
Yep.
Still part of the livestock committee. Did go to college, nothing ag related. I don't knock anybody in my upbringing and in my schooling, but I did not know what was out there.
Yeah, I would agree. I had the same experience.
We did not. We came from a point in time in Jackson County, which it's not like this now. We have great FFA programs at all three schools.
Yes.
But we came from a point in time when Oak Hill had an FFA program, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never a part of it, and maybe that's where my downfall was. But there was nobody else from our age group taking off and going to ATI or
no. I don't know that we had anyone in our group that went to any sort of ATI.
I mean, honestly, it was kind of an underserved group because there was a large group in our age bracket that probably would have ran to ATI.
Yeah, I mean,
they would have ran to ag education.
I would agree. I mean, there's a lot of guys and girls that had huge potential that just didn't know.
Yeah,
didn't know what was available. Yeah. Didn't know what their options were.
And a lot of them are back here farming now.
Exactly.
But they are years behind.
Yes.
Where they could have been.
Yes.
Adam Davis, for instance. Adam is back here running this running, Marvin's Gardens, running the row crops. But what could he have been? Where could that place be right now if he would have known the ag education that he could have went and received?
Yeah, I mean, you never know.
Where could your operation be if you'd have went and took beef and forage, beef production?
Yes. And Levi, I'll go one step further. I mean, it's almost like the older I get and the more I'm introduced to people, the more I realize, I don't want to say that I missed out on the opportunities that were available to us that
very much
that we didn't know about.
Yes.
But to that end, so you went to school hawking for heavy equipment.
Yes, I have a degree in heavy equipment management that's as good as the piece of paper that it is on.
But
there's a story to that.
Well, not only that, but I think, if nothing else, that give you 2 years of.
It gave me 2 years to grow up.
Bingo. I didn't want to say it. I'm not saying you were. I'm not saying you were immature, but I think we were all immature.
We all were.
Yes.
But it gave me 2 years to grow up because honestly, when I was in high school and we started talking about college stuff, I didn't want to go take an ACT.
Right.
Hawking didn't require an ACT.
It was easy.
Mom and Dad said, you need to go get a college education. Okay. Well, I am going to narrow my scope to Hawking College. And then 17-year-old Levi, who is looking at Hawking College, sitting on that bulldozer sounds real fun. Sitting on that trackhoe sounds fun. Shoot, let's go do it.
It was a playground.
There's money to be made doing that
Absolutely.
stuff.
Absolutely.
And the guys that are good at it,
they're making bank.
They can make bank.
Yes.
And the guys that are good at it can develop it into a small business that they,
yes.
I mean, they can really make bank.
Yes.
I didn't have the patience. I couldn't sit on a bulldozer all day and look at the same thing. I couldn't. I loved running a trackhoe, and I got decent at it for a college kid.
Sure.
I mean, I couldn't have went and competed against anybody that I couldn't have walked onto a job site and said, I am a trackhoe operator, because they would have said, no, you're not. But it just, and I tried to get in the union. I tested twice.
Okay.
Tested 3 times.
Okay. Never knew that.
Back in a point in time where you were guaranteed not to get an interview your first time.
Okay.
Your second time, you were going to get an interview. You may get accepted. And I honestly think that second time, I would have got accepted. But in that interview process, they asked me, can you start your pre-apprenticeship program this day? It was day one of finals week, my final quarter in college.
Now finals. What finals are you talking about?
Finals in college.
Oh, finals in college. Sorry.
It would have been day one of the pre-apprenticeship program that year, lined up with like day one of finals week. And the way the pre-apprenticeship program works, you can't miss a day. You can't be late. You can't leave early. That is all grounds for them to kick you straight out of the program.
You know, and that's crazy. And look at it now. I would say now that pre-apprenticeship program's probably willing to almost cater to whatever you want or whatever you need.
Because now they need the operators.
Right. 20 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Yeah. When we were getting out of high school and even out of college, I mean, I took a 2-year degree program. It took me 2.5 years to get through it. Not because I was dumb and failing classes, but because I knew that I was not responsible enough to move 10 miles from Athens.
Sure.
And I also knew that I got some financial aid, but not enough to cover living there.
Yeah. Fair.
It was going to cost me, because we went.
Yeah.
Me and Dad took me up there. We were registering for my first quarter of classes, doing all that stuff, and we were going to register for housing. And housing, I want to say, was $3,300 a quarter with a food program. I drove it in a 3/4 ton diesel pickup at that point in time for $100 a week, an 11-week quarter. I spent $1,100 in diesel fuel to drive back and forth, ate dinner at home, packed my lunch, took it to school. I didn't pack my lunch every day, but I mean, I packed my lunch days that we was going to be on a job site, whatever.
Sure.
And I had a third of the costs.
But you made it work.
And I made it work, and I got through it, but there was times I couldn't take 18-hour course loads.
Because the scheduling just simply would not allow it.
It wouldn't allow it. 8 a.m. classes weren't my friends, because at that point you're leaving the house by 6:30.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there were classes that to get them in, they were only offered this quarter. Yep. And they're only offered 5 to 9 because it's a lab.
Okay.
The welding lab at Hawken College back then, I don't know what it's like now. It was held in the back of Logan Welding.
Really? I didn't know that.
If you go, I'm dating myself here. This was before the bypass around Nelsonville.
Oh, yeah.
So you would take 33 through town and it turned into a 2-lane road.
Yep.
You'd go about 3 or 4 miles up through there, and Logan Welding was on the right.
Yep, I'm familiar with it.
Our welding lab was held in the back of Logan Welding.
Okay, I never knew that.
So we couldn't have lab hours until they were closed for business for the day.
Okay.
So that class would start at 5 and run till 9 at night. Well, if I'm in welding class from 5 till 9, and then I'm driving home an hour and a half, because by the time you got that far north of town, you got to come back through town, or you got to go down 93.
Sure.
You know, you're an hour and 15 minutes solid.
Absolutely.
And then, so you're 10:30, 11 o'clock getting home, if the weather's good. And then turn around and have to be in class at 8 a.m. the next morning. There was just a lot of times I didn't load myself up because of it. I took some 21-hour course load quarters because they were all afternoon stuff.
I got you.
Or they were all 3 or 4 credit hour classes.
Okay.
But those 21-hour deals, those were jammers. But we got through it. I graduated. I got a piece of paper that says I went to college. Mm-hmm. Ran bulldozers for track hose and skid loaders for a small operation out of Oak Hill.
Yep.
For a little while. We worked Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's when he was home from driving truck.
Yep.
That's what we did.
Yep.
And then I delivered pizzas in the evenings on Friday and Saturday, and whatever else I could do, and to make a buck. Yep. I never stood in the bread line. Never, whatever I needed to do.
Right. You made it work.
And was continuing that process. I mean, my parents always called it I gin dude around. I done whatever to make a dime, whether it was come Ray K for you, whether it was whoever my regular employer was. And I done all that until the day that I ran into Ted Frazier at a livestock committee meeting, and he said, "Hey, you want to come work in a hayfield for me this week?" Sure. He's like, "We'll probably go ahead and teach you how to feed the kids calves because we're going to Missouri for vacation." And that part-time gig lasted for 7 years. And it was full-time for 7 years. And for 2 years, the first 2 years of that, I was still delivering pizzas on the weekends because
I don't remember that.
I didn't know what it was all going to be. So
you didn't want to give that up.
Yeah. I mean, it was,
and that
wasn't great money, but I could go on a Friday and Saturday night, make $80 a night in tips and have it cash in my pocket. The paycheck wasn't much, but I had it cash in my pocket to go along with whatever I was making at the farm. Shoot, it was beer money.
Fair.
I mean, honestly, I deliver pizza for beer money.
Hey, Rural Roots listeners, let's pay the bills by talking about some of our sponsors. And one of those sponsors is going to be RNC Packing. RNC Packing is proudly owned by Jamie and Amy Graham, and they've been in business since 1997. That's almost 30 years down there, and that's harvesting cattle and hogs. So if you guys need some good prime or some good choice beef, that is the place to go. And the reason I say prime and choice beef is because they are one of the only facilities in the area that offer USDA grading for beef carcasses. Hey, that's pretty important. Everybody goes to the grocery store. You look at your steaks. You look at your cuts. You want to make sure that they're good. Well, these guys down there at RNC Packing, they are certified to do that. They offer complete harvesting, and they also offer retail cuts. So, hey, if you've got your own beef and you want to take it down there and get it butchered, give those guys a call, and that's going to be 740-245-9440, or you can look them up at rcpacking.com. It's real easy, rcpacking.com or 740-245-9440. Let them take care of you. RNC Packing, located in Southern Ohio. You'll be glad you did. They've got some of the best seasonings you'll ever taste. They've got some of the best meat cutters that you've ever seen in your life. You will be completely happy with your butchered beef. I promise you, you'll be glad you did. Thank you, RNC Packing, for sponsoring Rural Roots Podcast.
And a lot of that with Ted was 7 days a week stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it wasn't a Monday through Friday.
No, and it wasn't a set schedule. It was start by this time, and we done a lot of show calf stuff. So if we were showing cattle, I mean, I may work Monday through Friday at the farm, and then crawl in a pickup truck on Friday morning and drive to a show and get everything set up for a show, and then be at the show for the weekend. Come home on Sunday evening and
start all over.
I'd go into work a little later on Monday, but I went into work on Monday because I mean I treated those cattle like they weren't mine, but I treated them like they were mine.
Sure.
So go in on Monday and go back to doing the regular thing until show season would end and you'd have 2 months. And it was time to start baling hay and looking at county fairs and looking at state fair. And you get done with state fair and you had about 2 months to do your second cut in the hay, which it didn't take that long. But
right. That's just the window you had in the schedule of everything.
It was the window you had. And then it was time to go to South Dakota because on top of everything we done at our farm, they had a business partner at the time in Central Ohio. And they would run a calf sale. The two of them would run a calf sale. And they were also running a sire service. Mm-hmm. So they were collecting semen and selling bulls on show bulls. So in the spring, I would go out and sell semen in this part of the country. And Chad, which was their business partner, would go out west, or Alice would go out west, or, Northern Ohio or wherever.
Whatever.
And then they'd sell semen in the spring, and then they'd buy calves, and they'd look at calves in the spring, and then they'd buy calves in the fall off some of their customers.
Okay.
So then I would take off. Usually, the Apple Festival usually marked the point in time it was time for me to leave. I would leave somewhere around the Sunday the Apple Festival ended. Go to Nebraska, go to South Dakota, go to Iowa, Wisconsin, whatever, Minnesota. Pick up 20 to 30 head of show calves that were all 4 and 5 weights, maybe 6 weights at the time. Throw them on a trailer, bring them back, and we'd spend 10 days running these calves through a handling system, catching them in a work chute, haltering them, tying their heads up, kicking the sides of this thing open, and rinsing and blowing these cattle that had never seen people but once or twice in their life. Because that's the other thing that job did allow me to do. I seen a different side of cattle. I grew up, and this is what I've told even my current employers at WW. I live in a part of the country where if a guy runs 200 head of cows, he does it on 4 parcels of land. Because if you can run 50 cows in one location,
that's huge.
That's huge in this area.
Yes,
there's a lot of there's some outliers to that.
Absolutely,
but for the most part the median herd in this area is probably what, 35 head of mama cows?
17.
17? Okay. But if a guy's running 50, he's a big operator.
Correct.
If he's running 200, he's running 450, 4 to 6 groups.
Yes.
I would go out there and I'd see places where they were running, no joke, there's a town called Wessington Springs, South Dakota that we went to every year. And when you were coming up, I think it's Highway 38, Wessington Springs, the entire town was on your left. And it had a population sign back then of like Wessington Springs population 601. There was 1,000 head of commercial black cows in the field that sign was in. There was just cattle. You would drive for 20 miles, and it was the same parcel of land.
And there was just cows, you could see.
As far as you could see. So I seen different parts of I seen different sides of cattle.
So that's where you were getting your education.
I have got every bit of my ag education
practical
on the fly. It's all been practical education. There has been no, aside from going to beef field nights and stuff like that.
Sure.
And then, honestly, I got into this equipment game by accident.
That was with Dean, correct?
That was with Dean. I was working for Ted. The guy that was working for Dean full time when Dean opened the shop out there was going to school. And when he graduated, Ted told Dean he needed to offer his guy a full-time job as a deputy. And Dean said, that's fine. If you're taking my full-time guy, I'm going to offer your full-time. Because I was working there part-time.
Sure.
But I was going in on Saturdays, and I was just there. I was a warm body to keep the counter open. He said, if you're offering my full-time guy a spot, I'm going to offer your full-time guy a spot. So he offered it, and he's like, you won't have to. And I thought about it, and Ted's like, it's probably a good idea. You won't be on the road as much. You can be around home. Shortly after Dad had passed away, I was like, that's probably not a bad idea. So I took it, and I took it as an inside sales guy. My job was I was at that counter.
Answer the phones,
help customers when they come in, learn the equipment. If someone comes in or if you sell something over the phone, you need to know the product to be able to tell them what'll fit their situation. If you got any questions, come to us and we'll take over. And I won't say it didn't set well, but I was like, nah, if I'm going to do this, I want to know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
you want to be the guy.
I learned, and a lot of it was hard learning. I learned how to set those facilities up by myself as far as putting chutes and tubs together and building chutes. Because in the heyday, when we were moving a bunch out there, it was nothing to turn 6 to 7 semi-loads of equipment a year. We were a 2-state distributor for Foremost.
Yep.
So we would turn 6 to 7 semi-loads of Foremost in a year when it was big.
But that's a lot of sheet panels.
That was the cattle equipment.
Sorry, Foremost, yes. Yeah.
But we were turning 6 to 7 semi-loads of cattle equipment. But you step back and you think, well, 6 to 7 semi-loads, you start stacking them chutes on there, you're only going to get 6 or 7. They would send us chutes inside of chutes. So we would get chutes in that were tore apart, stacked inside of other chutes. Handling systems that were tore apart and stacked inside other chutes. Curve panels for tubs wired to the sides. Corral panels wired to the sides. Starter panels flipped over on their tops and shoved inside of chutes. You may get a truck and look and see 5 chutes, but there may have been 11 on it. Because the thing with cattle equipment, there's more bulk than there is weight.
I would agree. Okay.
You take a big chute, for instance, like a Foremost 450. That's their biggest chute, short of being hydraulic. It's going to weigh in the neighborhood of 1,200 pounds. You grew up in the trucking industry. I grew up in the trucking industry. There's a lot of 1,200-pound chutes that can go onto a trailer.
Right, if you can fit it.
But there's more bulk than there is weight.
Yep.
So we would have them things crammed full. That loader is 3,500-pound lift capacity, and you go to pick up a chute that's supposed to weigh 1,200 to 1,400 pounds and struggle because there would be 3 there.
The inside of it, yeah.
So, and that was part of my job to the very end. Whether I had been there one day or 8 years when I left, The day I left, if there had been a load of cattle equipment come in, I would have put it together before I left.
So you were in that role for 8 years.
That was me for 8 years. But it only took about 2 before Dean said, Mr. Armstrong said, I think I'm going to take you to Beef Expo. Or no, it's Farm Science Review first. He said, I think I'm going to take you to work Farm Science Review this year. So I ain't never done anything like that. He goes, you'll be fine. The first year of trade shows that I worked, I thought, this is terrible. How does it? Nobody would talk to me. Nobody would talk to me. Unless I knew you. And if I knew you, they would come onto the lot and talk to me until Dean or Andy freed up.
Yep.
The first year, I done nothing but hold people on the lot. Which, in hindsight,
you was learning,
was the greatest thing for me, because when I would hold someone on the lot and Dean Armstrong or Andy Farley would get them, those two are a wealth of knowledge when it comes to anything ag handling, ag feeding equipment, ag, automatic watering equipment, anything. I would shadow them. I tried not to get in the way,
but just absorb.
But I wanted to be close enough I could hear them talk and understand what they were saying. And I took parts of Dean and parts of Andy and parts of learning on my own and developed my own model of how to talk to people. I've heard you say it on other podcasts, you hate being a salesman.
Yeah.
I honestly, I can't say that I love being a salesman, but I love the art of the sale.
And I think what you're really good at that maybe you sometimes forget or maybe don't realize is you have an extreme knack for wanting to help people.
Yes.
To want to hey, I want to put this chute here and do this and this and this. And hey, I got it. Like we can do that.
Yeah. We'll make it happen.
Yeah.
We will make it fit. We will make it as if the hole is big enough for the chute to get in, we will find a way to get it
We'll get it in there.
And we will put cows through it.
Sure. Okay. So then your next happy accident happened, right?
Yes.
To sort of flash forward a little bit. 8 years.
I called my WW rep and put an order in for David Johnson for some rodeo stuff. And that was at like 9 o'clock one morning. 1 o'clock that afternoon, I get a phone call from my rep, and I'm thinking, oh, he's going to tell me. As soon as I seen him call, I was like, man, he's going to tell me it's going to be a while, or it's going to be. And I answered, and he said, hey, I'm leaving WW. And I went, and the salesman in me who wants to take care of the customer first, I went, would you put my order in?
You were just worried about your order.
I was worried about my customer.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. I've always been customer oriented.
Sure.
And a lot of that comes from all those years ago when I was delivering pizza, you had to be customer oriented.
Yeah. Or you're not going to get that tip. Sure.
And then when I started selling livestock equipment, if you're not customer oriented, my philosophy in selling livestock equipment has always been, if you give me time to figure it out with you, let's spend your money once, because then you'll spend money with me later.
Well, and I've heard you say it. I mean, even to me, I don't want to call it a sales pitch, but you've always said, hey, listen, you're not spending money, you're making an investment.
Exactly. So Dean's famous line was, there's nothing in any of these catalogs that I can sell you that costs more than a hospital visit.
Yep, I would agree.
Which is very true. But my philosophy was always, don't come to me and tell me you got 10 cows and expect me to sell you a $15,000 cattle chute.
You don't need it.
If you come to me and tell me that you've got 10 cows and you're just starting out, I am going to gear myself up to sell you
maybe a used chute.
A used chute, or like WW just bought out Stronghold cattle equipment about 2 years ago. We have a chute called a Producer 640. It's a great cow-calf chute.
Okay.
Doesn't have a squeeze, doesn't have, it's just kind of a straightforward manual headgate. You can put rear controls on it. It's got an awesome bifold tailgate. I've been in this industry a lot of years, and I am not kidding when I say it's probably my favorite tailgate. It's smooth, one-hand operation, and you can put the rear controls on it, and you can stand at that tailgate and run your headgate and your tailgate at the same time.
That's the ticket right there. Yes.
But it doesn't have a squeeze. It doesn't have drop-down branding doors. It doesn't have removable kick doors. And but it hits a retail price point that everybody in this area can stomach.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
if nothing else,
if
it's a
you've
starter
got 10
shoot.
cows, you can't buy a $15,000 shoot and justify it. But you can buy a $6,500 shoot.
I would agree, yeah.
And if you come to me and tell me you got 15 cows, this isn't your full-time gig, you're just getting started, maybe you don't want to grow past 15 cows. In my mind, well, you've got to have something other than just a shoot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So if I say, let's not look at this $16,000 shoot, let's look at this $6,500 shoot and leave myself another $6,000 to put you a handling system behind it.
Hey, Chubbies, welcome to Season 1 of the Rural Roots Podcast with your host, Creek Chubb, a.k.a. Kyle Fannin. You guys are going to love this season, mainly focused around agriculture and just anything land, okay? But we couldn't do this without our sponsors. And the first one that we're going to talk about is Bickle Insurance Services. Those guys handle everything from pollution liability to crop insurance to home and auto insurance to your farm needs, anything. The main thing is that they focus on at Bickle Insurance is coming up with a plan for you. So make sure you give those guys a call, and Kyle, aka Creek Chubb, he's going to tell you how to call them right now.
Guys, give Aaron or any of his team members a call at 740-593-7311 or at bickleinsurance.com.
You'll be glad you did.
Whether that be just a couple corral panels and a couple bow gates to make a bud box,
Sure.
or we start there, and then 5 years from now you call me up because I took care of you, and you say, hey, Levi, I decided I want 20 cows. I want 30 cows. I want 40 cows, but I really like this shoot. But this little handling system, well, that's cool. It's not throwaway parts.
Right.
We'll use that as a holding pen. But let's look at putting a tub in. Let's look at putting some adjustable alley in. Let's look at putting. But my philosophy has always been, if I can treat you well on the first one, I've built a customer.
Yeah. Build a relationship.
I've built a relationship.
Absolutely.
Because you can take, and you were in sales long enough to know this, and you're still selling. You're selling yourself and your product of beef now. Mm-hmm. But you know as well as anybody, because you've been on the buying side as well. People buy from people, and people buy from people that treat them right.
People do business with people they like.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I have made more friends and acquaintances through people that I've sold equipment to than I ever could walking down to the corner pub and trying to make friends in the bar.
I would agree. Yeah.
Because there's people I can call and just check in, or, hey, I'm broke down and I'm in your neck of the woods.
I need help.
And they'll help you.
It's awesome.
And that's just kind of always been my philosophy, is treat them right the first time. You'll have them as a customer for a long time. There was a guy from Hillsboro. I sold him a shoot at a High Beef Expo. Complete whim. We didn't have any foremost stake up there. I called a buddy of mine in Indiana, and I said, hey, if you guys got a couple extra Calco shoots, throw them on truck. We'll put them on my lot because I had space.
Yeah, room.
And we had dealt some of their stuff. So they did. Guy walks on my lot, legitimately looks at me and says, well, I was told you guys were a foremost dealer, and my vet told me to buy a foremost shoot. And I said, we are a foremost dealer. Typically, I'd agree with you to buy the foremost shoot. We're having some issues getting them in right now. But I can show you this. Real comparable, has a lot of the same parts and pieces and a few features a foremost don't have. I met that guy for the first time that day and took a check from him on a $10,000 Calco cattle shoot. He came to the shop to pick it up. I sold him an SI feeder wagon because I treated him well while he was there.
Yeah.
And when he came to pick his SI wagon up when it came in, he seen one of the Easy Way oilers. Walked him through the Easy Way oiler, sold him two of those when he was picking his SI wagon up that I had to order in.
Yeah. When
they came in, he bought one SI bell feeder that was sitting there as well.
So instead of
I treated him right the first time, yes. And instead of shoving a $10,000 cattle chute down his throat and being like, no, you got to pick it up here, I'm not taking it back, I hauled it from Columbus to Jackson, and I sold him $30,000 worth of product in the matter of 6 weeks.
It's awesome.
I mean, it's just, and that's what I like about sales. I like the art of the sale.
Yeah.
And I like building a customer relation. The biggest piece of advice Dean Armstrong ever gave me was, don't get frustrated. It takes 3 years. I couldn't get anybody to talk to me. And he told me that multiple times at shows.
But
It
after
takes
that,
3 years.
but after that third year, it started coming, or second
Fourth year.
Okay.
The fourth year was when I understood what he said. And I'd sold stuff to people at shows, and, puffed my chest out because I wrote a ticket. And then look over, and Andy Farley's got $15,000 worth of tickets in his shirt pocket. Dean's got $10,000 worth of tickets in his shirt pocket, and I just sold $1,500. There were some reality checks along the way, and there still are.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was like year 4. Me and Dean are at Ohio Farm Science Review. Might have been year 5. I'm talking to a customer off on one corner, and our lot at Farm Science, you've seen it. It was huge.
Oh, yeah.
So when I say I was off on one corner, I was off on a corner.
Yep.
Guy walks on the lot, looks Dean Armstrong in the eye. Now, mind you, there was a banner on top of a 450 chute that said Armstrong Ag and Supply. There was a banner on top of an Easy Way that said Armstrong Ag and Supply. There was banners on the side of crap. Everything we had there had a sticker on it that said Armstrong Ag and Supply. Dean Armstrong is Armstrong Ag and Supply.
Sure.
This guy walks on the lot and he says, "Where's Levi at?" He says, "Oh, he's over talking to a customer. What can I help you with?" He said, "I'll wait." Dean said, "Well, I mean, I can, he might be a little bit. This guy's pretty serious talking about a shoot, He goes, "If it's all the same to you, I'll wait." He waited 20 minutes. I finished up with that customer, wrote him a ticket, walked back over. "Hey, how are you?" Couldn't remember his name to save my life. Still can't to this day. He's in my phone somewhere. But I'd sold him something. And he said, "Hey, I was wanting to get some more of them feed bunks from you." I said, "Well, I don't have any in right now." I said, "I can get them ordered in. How many you want?" He said, "I'll take 4. I said, "Okay." I said, I kind of looked at Dean and, just finished it up. Guy went on his way, and I said, "I just wanted some feed bunks, He said, "Because it's been 3 years. That's your customer." He did not want to talk to me. He said, "I tried." He said, "I offered twice." He said, "He stood here and twiddled his thumbs until you were done." I was like, okay.
So
I have customers.
So the story here is patience and perseverance.
You can't jump into anything and assume that you can be successful day one, because you will get knocked on your butt on day one. And it took me, I've been knocked down plenty of times. But back to your flash forward, yes. So he calls him back and he says, "I'm leaving WW." Okay. "Did you put my order in?" He goes, "Well, yeah, your order's placed." I said, "Okay." I said, "What sucks? Is everything all right?" And he goes, "That's not what I'm calling about." He said, "I'm leaving on good terms." I said, "Okay." He goes, "They asked me who my recommendation was, and I told them you. Out of all the states I cover, I gave him your name." All right. That's big. That's a career change.
Yeah.
I got to think about this. He's like, "Well, think about it and call Sam." Well, who's Sam? He's the sales manager. "I'll text you his number." Cool. So that evening, I'm working cows with Dean Armstrong. I hadn't said a word to this to Dean. I hadn't said a word to anybody. My mind is spinning. I'm working cows with Dean. Phone rings. It was on charge in the truck. My watch rang. I looked down. Gentleman by the name of Bo Sanders. Bo's the national scale manager for WW Livestock Systems. When I was at Armstrong's, we sold a pile of WW Paul scales.
Okay.
I mean, we'd sell the little 58 hog scale and the 70 hog scale. We'd sell 10 to 12 of them a year, and a couple big scales a year, and a couple legal for trade hog scales to county fairs a year. I mean, we sold a
lot of.
We got an award at their last dealer meeting for selling the number one amount of scales either in the territory or in the country for the year.
Nice.
Bo calls. I didn't put 2 and 2 together. I text him when I'm done. I'm like, "Hey, I seen you called. What's up?" He's like, "Hey, if you're interested in a job, there's one coming available." I said, "Yeah, Keith called me. So I felt I owed the respect to Dean Armstrong to clue him in on this. So I go in the next morning. I sat down and I talked to him about it. "Have you called him?" I said, "No, I'm still thinking about it. I'm still praying on it, trying to figure it out." He goes, "Well, Levi, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but you need to at least call on this." He said, "Call and see what they offer." He's like, and I can be bipartisan enough, or my favorite thing to say is I can be Sweden.
Yeah.
I can sit in the middle. He's like, if you got questions, he's like, you can bounce them off of me, whatever. He's like, and I'm not saying this that way I can try to counter it.
Sure.
He said, because I can't.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I called him. I gave it another day. Went and done a rodeo. Got home at like 4 a.m. Didn't go to bed. Got a shower. Went to work. And like 10 o'clock, I make this phone call. And he's like, yeah, let's talk. And I said, hold on. I haven't been to bed in 30 hours. I'm tired. I cannot have this conversation and it be the conversation that I need to have to make this decision.
Sure.
But I want to let you know I'm interested. He goes, call me Monday and let's have this conversation. That was on a Thursday. I had 2 pages of questions. Best thing I ever did. I had 2 pages of questions because I needed to know answers. I needed to know things before I made this jump.
Sure.
So I called him on Monday, and we spent like an hour and a half on the phone. He answered all my questions. And basically 2 weeks later, I got a job offer.
And what are you doing exactly with that?
So my technical job is Northeast Territory Manager.
Okay.
I'm in charge of, I'm not even going to try to name them because I'll drop a state, but
several states.
Okay. The easiest way to say it is Iowa East, Tennessee North.
Okay.
Add on Wisconsin and Minnesota, and then take part of the northeastern, the colonial states out and call them house accounts because there's cattle up there.
Just probably not.
I've sold equipment into Vermont in my life. I've sold it into Maine in my life. But my main job now is dealer support and trade shows.
So you're still in that. You're still in a sales role, but it sounds like it's more of a, I want to say, a strong customer support role.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Now,
customer development. How's that?
We can still do some direct sales.
Okay.
I try not to do a lot if I have a dealer in that area because my outlook has been on it since I took this job. I can't cover all my territory as a salesman. Nor my dealers can.
Right. That's what I'll say, nor do you want to, but yeah, your dealers can.
And if I start cutting my dealers off at the knees, pretty soon there's a ton of cattle equipment manufacturers. And if I cut them at the knees, they're not going to sell WW. WW is what puts food on my table.
Right.
Gas in my pickup, beer in my cooler, that's what pays my bills.
So what is your, I don't want to say focus, but what product are you pushing the most, do you think?
Right now, we've kind of been in a very, very high trend of Fair and Expo pinning.
Really? Okay.
We manufacture everything from cattle tie panels down to sheep and goat pins, hog pins.
Okay.
We've been in a pretty good trend of that right now, nationally.
So it's more than just bucking chutes and arenas.
Yes. That's the cool part to me is I rodeo a lot. You know that. That's been my passion since we were kids.
Right.
I get to sell rodeo equipment now.
Right.
And
you get to go to a lot of rodeos.
I get to go to a lot of rodeos. I got to get
aside from the rodeos that you're going to anyway.
Aside from the 20 to 25 we put on a year, I went to the NFR this year. I never thought I'd make it.
So let's talk on that real quick. And I don't want to rush you, but I want to touch on it real quick before we get to our closing comments.
Mm-hmm.
What exactly do you do with Diamond J Rodeo?
The easiest thing to explain is what I don't do.
Okay, what don't you do?
I don't announce.
Okay.
I don't fight bulls.
Okay.
And I'm not a funny man.
Okay.
And I'm not a pickup man.
Okay.
In the last 3 years, I took over. I write all the contracts.
Okay.
I do all the sponsorship type meetings. I book all the events. 90% of the events. There's still some contracts we've had for years that
legacy.
They want to deal with David.
Sure.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But David still calls me when they call him, and I write their contract and I send it to them, and they return their contract to me.
Okay.
And I book a lot of our contract acts, whether it be our announcers, our funny men, our, and then I kind of, David's way of saying it is he likes to haul steel, and Levi tells him where to go.
Okay.
And then come show day, I may rail in hauling stock. I may be running the roping end. I may be pulling gates during the rough stock. I'm fat and slow, so I try not to do that a whole lot. I may be working in the back pins.
Hey guys, let's talk about one of our sponsors. We couldn't do it without them, and that sponsor is Lazy Creek Meats. We all know Lazy Creek Meats. It's owned and operated by the Fannin family, and they've been raising cattle in South Central Ohio since 1950. They are now on their fourth generation of farmers since 1950. They continue to preserve their mission, and that is to produce high-quality beef the way nature intended, without all that subtherapeutic antibiotics and without all the growth hormones. They pride themselves in being stewards of the land and giving every effort in maintaining a sustainable farm operation. They don't use herbicides or pesticides on any of their grasslands, and they utilize rotational grazing along with other best forage management practices. And that helps them optimize their hay and forage production as feedstock for their animals. All of their cattle are fed a diet of free choice grass or forage with all natural supplements of corn, soybean, vitamins, and minerals to produce quality product while maintaining the superior health of the animal. From conception to consumption, their vision is to feed the family and the customers quality beef for generations to come. Guys, look them up on their Facebook. They're all over social media. They take very well care of their farm and their animals. If you go out by their place, you'll see it's neat as a pin. And that's important stuff whenever you're consuming beef or whenever you're looking to consume beef. You want to see what kind of food that beef is eating. And I promise you, you cannot do any better than what the Fannins are doing out there with Lazy Creek Meats. So get on their Facebook page. You can order right there from it. I believe you can on Instagram too. But just shoot them a message if you've got questions. They're constantly sharing recipes and ways to cook and different things. And for all you chubbies out there that are listening, if you saw that cow tongue that we fixed here a few weeks ago, that came from Lazy Creek Meats, and I'm telling you, it was delicious. So give those guys a call or look them up on their Facebook page at lazycreekmeats.com.
And then you do.
I may be sitting on a soundboard running sound for the announcer who's out there horseback.
But you also do some judging as well, right?
Yeah. I've kind of started to trend away from that. I actually just got a text on the way up here from another producer wanting me to judge a show.
Okay.
Judging's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Judging was fun when I started. When I started judging rodeos, I don't judge rodeos. I judge bulls and barrels.
Okay.
To judge in the IPRA, which is probably one of the second biggest associations in the country.
Yep.
The biggest being the PRCA, and then the IPRA. You have to go through judging schools, and honestly, I don't know enough about the timed event stuff, and I don't want to deal with timed event contestants.
Okay.
Some of them are really good friends of mine, but they know their rule book, and I don't.
It's just it's not in your forte, not in your comfort zone.
It's not I run the roping end at all our deals. From running the neck rope to popping latches to making sure stuff flows. I can do that. But judging's just not, I don't want to do it. And I've actually kind of trended away from wanting to judge bull ridings. When I first started, if we put up $1,500 in added money, and said we were taking 24 guys, we would have 10 on the waiting list trying to get in. And 7 of them would show up to see if one of the 24 above them didn't show up. So they could even get into the deal. One of their buddies would have got in and they didn't. So they'd stay in the car and see if there was a hole open or a bull they could mount out or whatever. And of those 24 bulls that we'd buck, you had to sharpen your pencil because there were some hands back in the day.
Right, it was tight.
I may score better than 50% of them. And we're taking 6 to a short round, but we had 13 guys cover. Now it's coming down to that judge's pencil and what he thought. And it was fun.
Yeah.
And in the last few years, it's still fun, but you may take 2 back on time, and you may not have, if you open it for 24 guys, you may have 15 call in.
Okay.
And now it's, okay, we're going to get 30 bulls here. We're going to make it a 2-header. Everybody's getting on 2. We're not doing a short round. And then it's an aggregate score of the 2.
Gotcha.
Not an aggregate. It's a combined score of
Yeah.
the 2.
Yeah. I know what you meant.
But there gets to be, and there's still some handy guys out there. There's still some guys that when I see them on the call-in list, I'm like, sweet. These guys are going to hustle. They're going to try.
Right.
They're going to make a bull ride.
Yeah.
And then there's like, you'll look and you'll see some of these people when you get to the show, and you're like, that kid's not really getting on, is he?
You got to question yourself.
And he's rented gear.
Yeah.
And he wants a Facebook profile picture. And he's one jump chump, gate cracks. He's hitting the dirt before the bull's back feet hits the dirt. And it's just like, how quick can you run your stopwatch?
Gotcha.
And don't get me wrong, there's still some times where we'll have some salty bull ridings, but it's not as fun as it used to be. One of the funnest deals I judged last year, we covered some bulls, but it was pouring rain, and I mean, just like we were all nasty at the end of it. It was mud up to halfway to our knees. I mean, but we had some guys show up and try, and I was like, if they were all like this, I'd be happy to judge.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of that's on me too. Like, I've never tried to push to take that next step and try to judge some of the low level PBRs or something like that. Cause it's, go pay and go to the PBR judging school. And then,
well, not only that, but at this point it's time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how much time do you have in the day to
everything in my life right now is, I got home. So I lied to you when you texted me about being on here. I told you I wasn't coming home until Friday.
Well, that's fine. I know.
Some things changed, and I drove almost 700 miles yesterday, but I was like, I'm sleeping in my own bed.
Sometimes it gets to that point.
And so then I got up this morning. I had some work stuff I needed to accomplish. Didn't get it all done, but I got the majority of it done. Had a couple other places I needed to stop and be at. Got a wedding to go to tomorrow for one of the guys on our rodeo crew. And then I'm leaving again on Sunday to go do Kentucky dealer visits. Then I got one stop I have to make in Tennessee, and then I'm coming home. That's the cool thing about this job. No one's telling me I have to go do that.
You're pushing yourself.
And a lot of it's I'm still trying to meet the majority of my dealers.
Sure. That's fair.
And once I get them met,
maybe kick it in neutral a little bit.
I don't know that I'll ever kick it in neutral. The hardest thing about this job for me is the fact that I don't go into an office.
I can resonate with that. I can definitely.
And a really good
building, even.
Yeah.
Just a building would be.
A really good friend of mine that lives here in Jackson, he works at his home as well. He gets up every morning and he drives to the gas station and gets a can of chew and a drink and drives home. And when he pulls back into the farm, he's got to work.
Yeah, it's a different mindset.
I get up in the morning, I get my shower, I gather all my stuff, and I drive to the fire station.
Okay.
And I set up my laptop, my chargers, whatever, on the table in the fire station. Because the first 2 weeks I done this job,
it was different.
I tried to get up and
the
first 2 weeks I had at home.
Yeah.
I tried to get up and set up at the house, and the dog was at my feet, or I need to go do this, or and I was just like,
let's go ahead and start doing some meal prep, and let's do some laundry, and let's mow some grass.
And mentally, I was like, you're supposed to be at work,
right?
Go to work.
Yep.
So for me, that was I go to the firehouse.
Sure.
And because back to your comment of I like to help people, I've been on the volunteer fire department since 2007.
Right out of high school.
Right out of high school.
Yeah.
The reason I joined ties back to ag.
Yeah.
They bought my last market lamb.
That's right. Yeah.
And when I walked up to thank them, because I was raised, it's a different world now. Everybody has a buyer's gift. You'll see some of these buyers leave
with armfuls.
They almost need to bring a 1-ton pickup truck.
Yep.
Because the guys that are buying a lot got a lot of stuff to carry out.
Right.
There was a little bit of buyer's gifts when we were in 4-H.
Nothing like there is now.
But you walked up and you shook your buyer's hand.
And looked them in the eye.
You looked them in the eye.
Yes.
You thanked them for the support, and you shook their hand. Chris Walls was the chief of the Madison Jefferson Fire Department at the time. I walked up and thanked him for buying my market land. And kind of jokingly, he said, hey, if you really want to thank us, come down and join.
About a year later, there you are.
Not a year later. That was in July. In September, I was on the department. By October and November, I was certified with 36-hour basic volunteer firefighter.
That's awesome.
I mean, it was, and I've been there ever since. Now, my role's changed a lot there, but.
You're still there, still a part. Well, let's roll into the closing questions I sent you. I hope you had time to think about it. So who's one person you would like to see on the show or someone that you would like to listen to on the show?
I don't know if you've recorded with him yet, whether you have or haven't, just because of everything he's been involved with, and he's got a pretty cool story in my mind. Mike Sheeter.
Yeah, no, I haven't actually. Never thought of that.
Because, I mean, I'm not going to tell his story.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about, but yeah.
You know, Sheeter's got a good story. He's been on everything.
Yep.
Farm Bureau Board, Soil and Water Conservation Board.
Yep.
Love to have him on the Cattlemen's Board. You know.
He's very involved.
He's very involved, and he's super knowledgeable. That guy, I've sat and watched him have conversations with Dean Armstrong that are like
high level,
very high level, and my mind is melting trying to listen to him. But again, I'm trying to absorb everything they're saying. Yep. But he's one I think would be a great one on the podcast.
Well, that's it, Mikey. You're up. That'll be easy. I'll stop by on my way home.
Yeah, exactly.
So the next one is, what's one thing you can't go one day without doing?
Getting up and leaving.
Okay.
I love my house. I love my, I love this area that we live in. Mm-hmm. But I can't get up and stay at the house.
Got to get out. Got to move.
I got to get out. I got to go somewhere. Even if it's just a town, I got to go.
Yep.
Because otherwise I never feel like my day started.
Feet's moving.
And there's Sundays, man, I love to get up and not do anything. I'll get up and cook breakfast, brew a pot of coffee, turn on the Cowboy Channel. I'll go to church at the Cowboy Channel.
Yeah.
I mean, but every day I have to get up and go.
That's awesome. Motivated. And the last one, who is someone you look up to or someone you lean to for advice? And that could be used in past tense as well.
Honestly, so the person I looked up to the most in my life was my father.
Yep.
I mean, every kid that grows up with a good father grows up thinking his dad's Superman.
Exactly. Yeah, I would agree.
But I lost him 11 years ago.
Yep.
And since then, there's been different people. The one I latched onto and I'll still go to for advice to this day, Dean Armstrong.
That's awesome.
He was, without Dean Armstrong, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, because I would have never learned I'd have never learned anything about livestock equipment.
Right.
As far as the sales side of it. I was always going to be around it in some form.
Right. But you were in it.
Yeah. But the point I'm at now, where I am one of currently 3 territory reps for WW Livestock Systems. We're looking, we got to replace the Southeast Territory rep, but I'm currently one of 3 in the country that has my title for that company. Would have never happened without Dean Armstrong.
That's awesome.
And I'll call him just to check in.
Yeah. See how he's doing.
If I'm on the road and I haven't talked to him in a week or 2, honestly, that's my most visited dealer. I mean,
I can see that.
I'll stop out because I'm home, and I'll just stop out and see him. Sometimes it's work related. Every time we'll wind up talking work.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of times
it's that presence. You're with him.
Yes,
you're there.
I was there today.
I can believe it.
I was there today.
And not to hijack your story, but Dean, if you're listening, before I forget, I had no part in this, but Uncle Kerry stopped out to your shop like 2 weeks ago, and unbeknownst to me, got 3 fence posts, and you weren't there. So, Dean, Don't let me forget. I got to pay you for those fence posts.
He probably ain't got to count on them.
I guarantee you he does. I guarantee you he does.
I don't know.
He knows how many splinter too.
I know the guy that used to count them.
Levi, man, I greatly appreciate the time.
Dude, I'm excited for this deal. I know you're going to do well with this.
I appreciate it.
Honestly, the Chubby Guys podcast is where I started listening to podcasts.
It's awesome.
And now I've dove in deep. Like there's my podcast library. I can't keep up.
Yep.
But when I heard you were starting one, or they had asked you to start one, I was like, this is going to be cool.
Yeah, I'm excited. We're getting the ball rolling.
And the reason my excitement is we know so many of the same people.
Yes.
We've grown up together.
You know the next one coming in.
Yes. Oh, I seen him at lunch today.
Yeah. And then you know the one after that as well.
Who's the one after that?
It's a surprise. Can't let all the cat out of the
bag.
Today?
Or?
Yeah, today.
Man, you're burning the midnight oil.
Got 2 more to go, bud. This is what we do. We hustle. You know
the
that.
one might have just called me. I'm not sure. But yeah.
Levi, I appreciate it. We'll have you back
Not
for
a
sure,
problem.
man.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it, buddy.
Appreciate it, brother.
Yep.